a little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or taste not the Pyrean spring. Their shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again. Fired at first sight with what the muse imparts, in fearless youth we tempt the heights of art, while from the bounded level of our mind short views we take, nor see the lengths behind. But more advanced, behold, with strange surprise, new distant scenes of endless science rise. So pleased at first the towering Alps we try, mount o'er the vales, and seem to tread the sky. The eternal snows appear already past, and the first clouds and mountains seem the last. But those attained, we tremble to survey the growing labors of the lengthened way. The increasing prospect tires our wandering eyes. Hills peep over hills, and Alps on Alps arise. Hello? Is this thing on? It's time to sing. Beneath the arch, let heartfelt praises ring. Forsake us not, O mild and moderate goddess. With fair and balanced rhymes, we beg your largesse. Help us narrate the story of your knights, and how they braved the unforbidding heights. We sing with measured tones, not high nor low, our tolerance and fairness to extol. Did we hit it? Did we achieve Popean iambic pentameters yet? let's compare.
In spirit. Yeah. Get away with words.
Oh my gosh. So I realized, so with Avita last week, we were doing a lot of backstory of, where things started from 2020 and, the on-campus saga of our battle against the tyranny.
Yeah.
Which then inspired us to realize, wow, we've been together about the same amount of time. I do think but it was funny to me to realize I'd actually written to Avita in, I think, March or February 2020. And that was before I started my Telegram chat, Dragon Common Room. And therefore, before we started working on writing the iambic pentameter, for which we are now not yet famous. Oh, well.
Or infamous.
Hey, we wrote an entire poem and published it in honor of Fama, the goddess, and either we didn't serve her well enough, or
I think we mocked her too well.
Mocked her too well.
Yeah. We mocked her fans too well, her admirers, her worshipers.
Indeed,
worshipers.
Indeed. So shall we tell the people some backstory about? You can tell them how you found me.
Oh, where's Milo?
Well, indeed, we do wonder at times right now. We have not seen him for some time.
No, I mean, that's where I started for me. It was, where's Milo, right? Because I'd been reading him on Breitbart for years. And and I read. I like to read these aggregate news sites, and I read a couple of Catholic ones, and it was one called Kneeling Catholic Blogspot. It's an aggregate of a bunch of different blogs, including yours.
Really? Ooh.
And so this one, yes, and this one
I'm
particular
famous
day,
in places I didn't
looking,
know.
yeah, and I was looking at this one particular day, and you had in the heading of one of your blog posts, it was Milo. I'm like, Milo, hey, she knows Milo. So I clicked on it. I'd been reading your blog for a couple of weeks, and you had an invitation to join your Telegram channel. I'm like, oh, socials. Okay, I'll do it. Right. What is Telegram anyway? So I signed up for your Telegram channel, and almost immediately was like, okay, we're writing poetry. KC, right, get in there, start reading. Like, what?
I'm happy to hear that occasionally I'm incredibly persuasive, right?
Bossy is the word I was looking for.
Targeted advertising. I mean, we could put it that way. Yes.
Yeah.
No, the thing is, I think though, I seen you. This is interesting to me because I had the memory that I'd seen you in Milo's Telegram chat before this.
No, okay. I was in yours first because that's how I was introduced to Telegram from you, and then you had been talking about Milo, and I said, "Oh, he's got a chat here," so I found it, and then I went into his, and got kicked out, and went back in, and got kicked out, and went back in. And I'm recently kicked out. So
yes, I've been like completely kicked out for a year, I think now. I was banned for a bit from now 6 months into October. I came in like a minute in October, and then I was like completely exiled, thrown into the outer darkness. However, back in May, so this is nearly 4 years. It's not a perfect anniversary. It's nearly 4 years ago that I started my Telegram chat. And it was, in fact, because I'd been kicked out of Milo so many times. So irony that I was, that I was writing, and I did, ruthlessly poach people. Invitation only. No, I mean, there were friends that I'd made in his chat, and I told them about mine. But with the the setup with Dragon Common Room, I had already been trying to get people to write poetry in Milo's chat. I had this terrible influence on his chat. I was trying to make it cultured.
Yeah. Anyway,
that didn't work, right?
I wouldn't imagine it would.
Well, no. I tried.
Well, some of them did. They came to your chat and started writing.
Yes, a few. So
very good job.
And I'd say 4 years ago. So we started with another early member of Milo's chat, Cheryl, and I had co-written Dragon Song as this song of, we do all things inspired by the Song of Songs in my world, and we had been inspired by the Song of Songs to write a love poem about the dragons getting tempted to vice. We're still writing that story, just keep redoing it with different characters, right?
Yeah.
And did you come into the Telegram chat when we were still working through reading that poem that she and I had written?
I was, okay. You and the Dragon Song that you and Cheryl had written.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who was reading through it with the rest of your chat. Yeah. I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And we did it. We were doing it. So this is what, I realized when she and I wrote it, we did it in iambic pentameter, which is, if you all appreciate that you've been following us on the Mosaic Ark long enough to recognize that is the meter of English poetry, right? It's the meter that A Little Learning is a Dangerous Thing is written in. It's a meter that Milton's written in. It's a meter that Chaucer writes in. It's the great narrative meter of English.
Right. It's magic.
And nobody knows how to read it anymore.
Actually, they probably, well, you're right. They don't know how to read it, but they don't realize they're actually speaking it quite often.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't think, well, I can't even say that because some rap artists do it pretty well, writing in specific poetic meter and rhyme. And so if you were to present it to them, or if somebody were to present it to them like that, they might, or do a side-by-side sometime, they might get it. But I understand that these forms still exist in our language and in our art. But people hear Shakespeare and they go, ugh, they're remembering, they forced me when I was in 8th grade to watch Macbeth and I hated it, And
It's got witches and
my
ghosts and
husband's one of
stuff.
those.
Waiting, it's like, why? How
Yeah,
is that not cool?
yeah.
Wait.
How is it not cool? Right, the Three Witches. Right. I wasn't one of those kids. I absolutely adored it. I loved the language. I loved language in general, but the English language is always fascinating because it's so flexible. Of course, that gets us into trouble as well,
Right.
right? Because it's not there are hard and fast rules that can be broken, if that makes sense. It sounds like nonsense. It's Alice in Wonderland, right? Of the alphabet world.
Just brillig in the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome wraths outgrabe. Right, but
Right.
it's interesting. I mean, this was one of my I think I've tried to explain my obsession with poetry a few times, and published a little book of my students' poetry, including Evita's. We're gonna have to have her back and to talk about the poem that she wrote, which is about her
Yeah.
great grandparents and their experiences in the Spanish Civil War.
Oh,
It's
that'd be awesome.
fascinating, but now I forgot what I said. Oh yes, in the little book, The Writing Christian Poetry, I explained what I was up to, but it's more one of those. I had so I just read that passage from Pope. A Little Learning is actually a part of this longer essay on criticism, which I think after we finished reading Dragon Song in May June 2020, we started then reading some of essay on criticism,
We
right?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say if we're going to learn to read, if we're going to learn to write iambic pentameter, we need to read the best. And Alexander Pope is absolutely the best iambic pentameter anybody's ever written.
Yes.
It's perfect in
Right.
this beautiful fluid way. But the Little Learning is a Dangerous Thing is a passage from this longer poem that he wrote, and I love A Little Learning is a Dangerous Thing. I've had that over my desk for decades and decades because
Mm.
it's this. You start with a little bit, obviously a little learning is a dangerous thing, but then the more you get into it and the deeper you drink, the more you realize you barely know anything, and I like the mountain climbing imagery too. You're climbing the mountain and you think, yes, I'm almost to the top, and then Alps upon Alps, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah. That's just the first ridge. And then you die of despair. Right.
Well, I mean, Pope had an actually fairly difficult life. I mean, this is someone who's spent his life crafting. He made a bit of money translating Homer, and was able to buy a villa at that point. But don't be envious of him because he had terrible he was 4'9" or something, but not because it was because he was stunted in his development, and he had hunchback and things like that. So he may have written this beautiful language, but he did not enjoy physical beauty.
Cyrano de Bergerac, right? He's physically deformed, but eloquent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Pope was he was sick when he was growing up, and it stunted his growth. Tuberculosis, maybe.
Mm. Now, did he come from a wealthy family or
A Catholic family, which is topical to our purposes.
and tough? And
Yes, because
yeah.
he's living in the early 18th century and it's illegal, or he's excluded from lots of professions because he's Catholic and his family's Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think from sort of middle bourgeoisie level, not wealthy, and Catholic. So in fact, with his verbal talents, he should have been able to, rise in whatever society, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. How did he handle that?
Wrote a lot of poetry.
Yeah.
including
damning doggerel.
The essay on criticism is one of his early ones, right? And as we will get into this here, maybe we should bring him on stage here. Here he is, looking debonair in a red chair. He's pretty scathing about his contemporaries, for sure. And when I didn't know a lot of this, I just knew I loved Little Learning is a Dangerous Thing, and I knew it as a cautionary tale about priding yourself too much on the first scrapings of technique, and that you needed to continue practicing, which he clearly did. I mean, again, best iambic pentameter of ever. And mostly, and he liked these heroic couplets, the rhyming couplets. So we worked in that. I feel like we're getting ahead of our story a little bit. Okay, so I'd set up the Dragon Common Room, and we were reading the dragon poem. Oh, that's what I was thinking. That I realized, I mean, it was a pretty lively poem, and it's pretty, a little bit steamy, and there's like vices that are dancing around a bonfire, and the dragon joins them, and then the demons kill the dragon, and slice him up and eat him, and and I thought, cool poem, eh? And then it's a little embarrassing now because it's so steamy. Nobody understood it, right? Did you get that we were reading it stanza by stanza, took a day per each stanza, because I realized everyone got scared of not knowing what it was about. And so I'm like, okay, so it's got layers, we'll talk them through. And it was actually really fun because the group just started with kind of not poetry appreciation, but so much as this little 8-line bit of text to then wrestle with, to start with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's been a long time, but I think I remembered it, understanding what it was about. No, just don't quiz me on it.
I'm not going to quiz you on it, but it's more the, so like, what are we trying to achieve writing poetry? Why would we do what we're doing in poetry instead of novels or, some other form? And, I mean,
well, you get to the point quicker, don't you? I mean, with poetry, if you're using the proper language, how would I describe it? Well, you're constrained by the meter,
right.
The rhyming scheme that you're using, and if you're smart and not Spencer, you'll restrict yourself to a certain amount of text, a certain amount of stanzas, like 100 or 200, not like 1,000. What was he planning? It was something insane.
So Fairy Queen Spencer, that we're modeling our current poem on, that's going to be 500 stanzas.
Yeah.
Which is short for Spencer.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting because you're sort of doing these like fractal structures on structures, and that what Spencer wanted to do was 12 virtues, each of them in I don't know how many cantos. And indeed, he didn't structure as tightly as, for example, Dante did. Dante is very tightly to, he's got 100 cantos with 34, 33, 33. And it's all meant to be in this great, beautiful architecture of his terza rima.
I think Dante was trying to communicate an idea of theology, and I think Spencer was playing with the language and showing what he could do with it. That's my take on just reading him, which can be, as we find out as we're reading this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm trying to remember the last one we read was pretty good, but some of them we read and we're like, what was he thinking? He's trying to be impressive with the English language in the way a Puritan minister would be when he's trying to impress somebody with a 4-hour long sermon to show how much he knows. That was the feel. That's the feel I get from reading The Fairy Queen. It does have good imagery in it.
Right.
He wasn't totally lost and wrong on that. It's just like you say, he wasn't tight with the story. I think it's because primarily he wanted to impress with the language he was using.
Okay, so what Casey is not explained that she's talking about right now.
I'm sorry. It's in my head.
See, exactly. No, so just as I started the Dragon Common Room off reading a stanza a day for 50 stanzas of the Dragon Song, we are now writing, we just started plotting Act 3, yay. Kickstarter supporters, we're still doing it. But for some time now, to sort of warm ourselves up to the meter and the stanza form, we read a stanza out loud of Spencer each day of the Fairy Queen, and some of them just make no sense.
Yeah. I mean, and my gosh,
if you were tortured through having to read, not Alexander Poe's quite fun. If you were tortured to read, through reading Spencer in college or something, it's never mind getting used to all the eds are stressed. So
I mean,
That
how
was
many?
easy compared to some. He switches to syntax and things. Spencer Pope does not do that, right? He's writing fairly straight, and
Well, I remember reading Pope in college, and it was difficult because he's making so many cultural references that are specific
ah,
to his time. So you have
yeah,
to read a lot of the notes along with it, but please do it. It's so worth it. The man is a genius. I don't think Spencer was a genius. I think Pope definitely was. He was a genius of the English language and of biting satire. He was just excellent at it. And
yes.
yeah, he's well worth reading through and reading with the notes. You'll be entertained by the notes too.
Again, you've done it again, but that's okay because I'm here to take care of you. What she's talking about is after we
That's so
read
funny now.
Essay on Criticism to get
Yeah,
everybody wound, rest. I'm not sure we made it all the way through. I think we read like part of it and such. And then I was like,
yeah,
okay, I'm saying to myself, and this is, I'm always mostly willing to confess my ignorance and lack of practice because that's how you get better at things. Um, I knew I knew the little learning is a dangerous thing, and I knew it was from Essay on Criticism, and I was sort of mildly aware of other things that Pope wrote. But one of the things that he is famous for, and coined a term for us in the language is the Dunciad, and I'm like, ooh, Dunciad, that sounds fun. And I think maybe I'd seen Roger Scruton or somebody reference it. It's like the Dunciad of modern journalism, and I'm like, well, that sounds topical. And then
yes.
we started reading the Dunciad, and all the things that Casey is describing right now for us became clear that the Dunciad, biting satire, is, and it's hard to read because he's literally insulting all of his contemporaries
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
brutally, absolutely
It's
brutally.
the smart man's TMZ of the time.
Well, yeah,
It's just well because it was like a gossip magazine but written in satire.
utterly. And this is, I mean, so this is the opening to the Dunciad, and you will recognize that our centrism games follows this on. It's the forsake us not, O mild and moderate goddess. Here we were actually the mighty mother and her son who brings the Smithfield muses to the ear of kings. I sing. Say you her instruments the great, called to this work by dullness, Jove and fate. You, by whose care in vain decried and cursed, still Dunce the second reigns like Dunce the first. Say how the goddess bade Britannia sleep and poured her spirit o'er the land and deep. Yeah, it's all about dullness. and
Yeah. Just dissed her.
and how everybody, I mean, it's like he's making the list of uh at some point he's got his narrator deciding that like everybody that he's reading is completely boring and dull, and he's giving up all of the classics, and he's going to go read the moderns. I forget exactly how this all played out. It's actually harder to keep track of than we're making it sound.
Wasn't he? I'm trying to remember now. Wasn't he when he was writing this making fun of one of his rivals who was also translating Homer at the time?
Oh, possibly.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, just making fun of him.
But anyway, he has dullness bring all the goddess dullness bring all the poets and critics and journalists and everything to her court and proclaim some games. And it turns out that they all have to prove themselves boring, which they
Yeah,
do.
I gotta go back and read this. Yeah,
Right. And having managed to, oh yes, that there's and when they finish, yeah, I think some of this people will be from, it's like with Shakespeare, right? You don't realize that you know it, but you do.
yeah.
How because he's making fun of all the journalists, and they all they live along Fleet Street, right? So after they've all done whatever they're doing, this labor past by Bridewell all descend as morning prayer and flagellation end. to where fleet ditch with disemboging streams rolls the large tribute of dead dogs to Thames. The river full of dead dogs. The king of dykes, than whom no sluice of mud with deeper sable blots the silver flood. Here, strip, my children, here at once leap in. Here prove who can best dash through thick and thin. They're going to like swim in this filthy river.
Literally thick. Yeah.
And who the most in love of dirt excel, or dark's dexterity, or of groping well. Who flings most filth and wide pollutes around. The stream be his, the weekly journals bound. A pig of lead to him who dives the best. A peck of coals apiece shall glad the rest. So they're going to have a swimming contest in the fleet that's full of dead dogs. And here we found Milo, right? This was fun. In naked majesty, old Mixon stands, and Milo-like surveys his arms and hands. That's because it's Milo of Croton who lifted a cow every day so that he got really strong. So... Yeah. Then sighing thus, and am I now threescore, and why ye gods should 2 and 2 make 4? He's old, so he's not as strong anymore. She said, and climbed a stranded lighter's height, shot to the black abyss, and plunged downright. He dives into the river. The senior's judgment all the crowd admire, who but to sink the deeper rose the higher. Okay, they all dive in the mud.
Yeah, so the journalists are diving in the mud and flinging it everywhere. Perfect.
Right? Right. So thus at this point we were, thusly inspired. Right. It's like, well, OK, so if we want to write poetry and we want to learn how to appreciate culture. And by the way, it's summer 2020 when we're all locked in our houses, or, I wasn't because I, took the dog out regularly. She wasn't dead yet. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she died in October, about the time we were finishing this poem, right? So, I won't go there. That we figured that we needed to learn to write as well as Pope, but not realizing that maybe we wouldn't have the fortune that he had been impressing the ladies. Well, okay, so we were by this point. I announced to my company, said, okay, we're all going to write a Dunciad, or our very own Dunciad. We're going to have to figure out how to mock and satire our contemporaries.
Yes.
How would we do that? I mean, he's done it so well, right? So usually there's never saying that all journalism is dead boring. But that there wasn't much, point in redoing that.
Yeah, we didn't mock the journalists. There were so many people to mock. The hardest part, I think, of writing it was just narrowing it down. Because, London society is the people who write the papers and the people who go to the parties that the papers are written about.
Right.
The world's a lot bigger now, and so you've got people who are in the public eye who are not just journalists, and I guess they would still be celebrities, but they would be celebrities for different reasons.
Right.
Right. Than just being born into it. So like politicians and actors and singers and artists and influencers. Influencers is a new thing that didn't exist 40 years ago.
Right.
Well, it probably did, but they didn't call them that. People famous for being famous, right?
But
that's their goal.
Influencers is actually the analog of journalists, right? Because you realize journalist just means journalers.
Yes. Right? Yeah, they don't call themselves reporters anymore, do they? Right?
No, but I mean, journalists, they journal. They just write,
right.
And I think, so we've now seen Bridgerton, right? And the Lady Whistledown character, she's a journalist in that she's just sending the scandal sheets out, right? And that Pope was kind of doing that with the Dunciad, although he riled everybody up so much, everybody got mad at him afterwards.
Yeah, it's like the same thing happened to, Truman Capote, right? There's a current show on about that. Well, he wrote about the ladies who lunch, and the ladies did not like it very much, and he was excluded. He was kicked out of society, so he didn't have access to the people he was inspired by anymore.
Well, see, there are various things about Pope. One, that he was Catholic, which matters. That he was disfigured by his childhood illness is another, and that here he is shown in his wig, right, and looking he's there's a bunch of portraits of him actually. But in
It's a very flattering
yes, so the
portraits.
portraits are very flattering. So again, uh, reincorporation of today, Photoshop is not new. It was called portraiture.
Right.
If you're worried that all the influencers pictures make them look too pretty, well,
The original airbrushing. Yeah.
it's called painting, right? And Pope he had various correspondents whom before he had insulted them and ticked them off, and one of them was Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who is shown here dressed in her costume that she acquired when she went with her husband to Constantinople. She accompanied her husband on a diplomatic mission that completely failed. But that's okay. 1718, and she loved writing letters, right? We have her letters, and Pope was one of her correspondents at that point. And I mean, she was very well educated, and she was able to converse with him about the kinds of things that he liked talking about. She was very high society, aristocracy. She, however, which this portrait does not show, was disfigured by smallpox.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful portrait. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen this portrait in person.
money.
It's life size, and it's like the shimmery on her dress is like
Yeah, that was
it's
amazing.
intense. She also has a little black servant slave behind her, which is right. She's not
Yeah.
unaccompanied. She has her attendant, right? So she and Pope have a lively correspondence. They talk about Greece a lot. He translates Homer. She likes believing that when she's traveling down to Constantinople, she's traveling in time, and is the places she's seen are exactly like they were back in antiquity.
Yeah, she's Helen in her head.
Well, yes, very possibly. I considered that. She's certainly like willing to fantasize about a lot of stuff, and sort of fantasize herself into this exotic past, and then put the clothes on and everything. Alas, things do not end well, and this is the fallout between Pope and she, is that he fancied her and she didn't return the attention.
Yeah. Yeah. That was never going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember. Does he?
Not just because she was married.
Oh, she had affairs like with everybody, so it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with her
Maybe
being
that's why I
married.
thought he had a shot.
Probably, and I think she was, she certainly was willing to lead people on, including her husband, whom she then cheated on. I mean, they eloped, right? It was all very romantic. She cheated. She, didn't listen to her father, eloped with her husband, and then spent the rest of their lives having affairs with opera singers and such. Yeah. Anyway, so this is all to say that just because it's an iambic pentameter, do not think that this is written by someone who has no life. He just has no life in the midst of incredible scandal and gossip, and just like today.
Yes, exactly like today. Yeah. And people just are busybodies.
Well, the thing is, I do think it was funny because I hadn't really intended this necessarily to begin with as my lesson about let's write iambic pentameter, because, well, maybe maybe I did mean it. It's like it's not stuffy, right?
No, it's not stuffy at all. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of action going on, and it's funny.
Right.
It's lighter material.
I mean, it's like what you were saying, the rap, it's like it was the rap of the day in the sense of it's the lively. I mean, for Pope, it was a living, lively community of people that were all writing vicious verses about each other. So it's straight up.
Sounds like middle school. I don't know. They're passing notes, and it's not nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just straight up, the most insulting things they could come up with in, meter.
Yeah. And they were constrained. They're constrained by that meter. Imagine what they would have done with prose.
Well, no, I think isn't our point to say it's more effective if it's constrained like this?
It is.
There's this.
It is. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. It is more effective. I'm just thinking the number of topics They could have expanded on, but so you can take one topic and describe like every facet of it using the poetic meter, because you're constrained by the meter. So you have to be very economical with your words, but you're still talking about a specific event or person. Does that make sense?
Okay, I fear we're giving the wrong impression here, because what we want to do is make you want to read our story.
No, you should read our story because it's funny. It's
right.
not, I mean, you are writing an iambic pentameter. That's just the meter. That's just a set number of lines and a specific rhyme we're using, but the language is modern. We're not using 18th century language, and we're not referencing 18th century history. So you're going to understand it, because the people they're a mixture of real and fictional people, and fictionalized real people.
Right.
So you'll get it, and it's very funny and kind of very creepy too sometimes. I would call it almost like a comedy horror.
What we wrote, yeah.
What we wrote,
but just to back up just a little bit again, to say, so we're writing in this older, formal metered poetry, which is not the standard, right? I have got it tripping off my tongue now to say I write poetry, because now we published Centrism Games, right? We published Aurora Borealis, we published First Act of Draco Alchemy, because we are published poets now. But when you say we write poetry, most people think lyric, right? They think it's going to be short little meditations that are always depressing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's what I think. When people hear you write poetry, they think, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you feeling better now?" This is what you do when you're journaling to get over something, right? Like when you're in high school, I got to get over this guy. I got to write some poetry. I got to write some,
or the thing, yeah. the kind of stuff that gets published in the literary magazines now.
Oh, it's garbage. Oh, sorry. I don't like saying that, but when we first started doing this, I said, I'm going to get on Twitter and I'm going to look at some of these poetry sites and I'm going to look at some of these contests, and I see what won. I swear, one of the things that was highlighted one month was a shopping list. No, it was a list of things this girl and her friend ate when out one day. It was literally a list. It's like, this is not poetry. Poetry can be anything you want it to be. It's like, this is modern art. This is not art. That's subjective. No, poetry is not subjective. Okay, specific meter's not subjective. I was encouraged when one of these contests said, "We'll take any meter you want to use," which means not just free verse, right, which is everybody's doing free verse. This is the oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name now. The guy who did Howl. I always confuse him with Kerouac. Ginsberg, thank you. It's not everybody's doing Ginsberg now. Right. It's just like this stream of consciousness is called free verse, which is lazy. It's just lazy, okay? But they said, no, you can use any meter you want. I'm like, I don't even care if they still go with free verse as a winner, as long as they're still now acknowledging that there are actual forms of poetry, right, that you have to, where you're restricted. I thought that was encouraging, but the kind of stuff people are getting highlighted for and getting gigs in university for teaching, it's just, I don't have words on the spot to fully describe how disgusted I am.
Well, now you know why Pope wrote his essay on criticism.
Yeah.
Because it's not a new thing, right? It's like, that's what Pope was as disgusted by of his own day. And in the essay on criticism, he's criticizing how terrible their poetry is, right? So he was inspired to write his by what he considered, the terrible standards of his own day. Literally, that is why he wrote the essay on criticism. It's why he wrote the Dunciad, to say, look, none of what you're writing is at all good or interesting. It's boring.
I'm curious what was being promoted that he thought was garbage. Because I get it. I get why he wanted to do it after seeing what's out there.
Okay, that's a backstory I don't know well. But so I have right now I have all I can see is the Alps peeking out of the misty hills in between, and I know like good poets. I don't know what they were responding to at the time. Yeah.
Probably pretty funny though. Yeah. Maybe it was Spencer.
No, he's actually one of the Alps, I'm afraid to tell you. But I mean, it's like, so you get the Alps of, Chaucer and Shakespeare, Spencer, okay, maybe, and Donne, John Donne, and Milton and Pope and Herbert and Byron and Shelley, who does actually write decent verse, even though it's diabolical and twisted.
It is.
And
Yeah.
ending with Gerald Manley Hopkins and T.S. Eliot. Yay! See, I can do a whole history of poetry now. But
that's very good.
But
I'm not familiar with Herbert.
Yeah, again, I've not read deeply in enough of these, but one of the great things about trying to write our little poetry so far is it does, in fact, give you the ability to appreciate the really great stuff because you know how hard it is to get it perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, there are people that can just rattle off some verse really quickly off the top of their heads. Rappers do it all the time. They do rap battles. It's really impressive. I can't do that. I have to sit on a piece of paper and struggle and write it and then rewrite it and then get a thesaurus and look for just the right word.
Yeah.
It's very impressive when people can do this off the top of their heads. It's, can they keep it up, for 100 stanzas? I don't know. They probably could, but they probably have to do what we do and just sit down and write it and be more careful about it because there's just so, unless they're absolute prodigies like Mozart and Amadeus, right?
Right.
Just writes it perfect the first time and it needs no corrections. But yeah, it's a lot of work, but it comes with a roadmap. Right, that's what the meter is.
Well, we've been getting better at it, and so I'd say, it's like the goal is to be able to do rap battles in iambic pentameter about No,
I would watch that. That's cool.
Yes, and what's funny is it is actually, if you think about it, they're movie versions of it, and there was one of these Hugo Award-winning sci-fi books that my husband and I were listening to in the car was in fact. Part of the world, the Arcady Martine's, part of her world involves these, very educated, high society people being able to throw verses at each other. And she talks about how the narrator talks about how she wishes she could do that. So clearly this is what we're aiming at, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of these things in our ambition that we wanted to, practice, it's like, there is a cultural recovery here, right? It's like if you're following the X accounts and they're showing you all the beautiful architecture, poetry is one of the things that needs to be a part of your repertoire because it is the thing that crafted our imaginary world verbally, and without metered poetry, Casey's expressing her disgust. Nobody cares anymore, right? It used to be the great. Noble art that you'd use to insult your friends. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or try to get a girl. Right. Now, I want to say that I'm disgusted more that it's being promoted above any other form. Right. If somebody wanted to write free verse, it could probably be done well. I didn't see it being done well, but it probably can be done well. But the fact that it's completely taken over everybody's mind that this is what poetry is and it doesn't have to have any rules. That's just wrong. And you're right. We need to recover it. This is cultural recovery.
Right. So we have multiple layers of ambition in this exercise. So we decided that we, therefore, being practicing what we preach, would write a Dunciad, by which we said, I think I did a blog post back in the day to announce it. Which we've narrated this way through, saying, surrounded by sycophants, dullness held court, seducing poets away from actual learning to compete in meaningless games. Rather than modeling their compositions on the greatest works of English poetry and prose, the poets, playwrights, and journalists of Pope's day flattered themselves with dedications to famous persons. And prided themselves on making as much noise as they possibly could, bleating like asses and screeching like monkeys, chattering, grittering, mouthing, jabbering all. Burning their tomes of theology and philosophy, they grubbed rather for political favors, wallowing in the filthy waters of the Thames with the bodies of dead dogs, themselves as blind as the puppies drowned in the mud. Plus change, eh? Okay, this are you distressed at the mendacity of our journalism in the year of our Lord 2020? How long ago that feels, right?
I
Are
know.
you bored with the tabloid chorus of commentators chattering mindlessly day after day? Do you long for a time when people took writing seriously as an exercise in beauty, not to mention grammar, rhetoric, or logic? Do you wish you had more adjectives to describe how disgusted you feel? Does modern criticism put you
I
to
do.
sleep? Whom do you blame for the current dreariness of academia, Hollywood, politics, and cultural generally? Welcome to Centrism Games. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so with
That's
the
excellent. I haven't heard that in a while. That's great.
that's I could right. I've got the lively prose down, I guess.
Yeah.
So we just like trying to think about a way to train ourselves and also do what Pope did, which was satirize the present for its particular foibles. And we said, well, he was going after dullness. We would go after how everybody is constantly trying to be in the middle, which is the centrism games.
Right. Yeah. They're trying to be in the middle because if they don't, they'll be kicked out of the limelight. They'll be kicked out of fashion.
Which I mean, if
Right?
we
Fame.
rewrote it now, like how many things will we add from 2020? The number of
Gosh.
ways you can now get kicked out of polite society. Well, if you don't take this side or that side, you've got to be stay in the center because otherwise you're going to lose your job as
Right.
Harvard University president, or you're going to
Well,
get
that's just yeah.
yeah
That's just it. The center's now disappeared, which is kind of interesting. It's one or the other, right? People were kicked. I mean, actors were kicked off of jobs working in Hollywood because they refused to get jabbed.
right.
This is that was crazy. I think it was Ice Cube. He's like, yeah, I turned down a job. I'm not going to let them tell me what to do.
Right.
I'm getting
Yeah,
this.
we didn't even think
And
of putting
God
that
bless
in
them.
as because
We didn't think about
there were
maybe
no
it's too
vaccines
early.
yet, right? As you said, it was
Yeah.
after the lockdowns, but before the vaccines, before the insurrection of January 2021, before
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I hadn't even considered it in this way. It's like before all of these other ways in which we are constantly told by our goddess Fama that you have to please
Yeah.
her and how can you do that, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they made it really easy. Just push this vaccine and everything's good. No. My God, they kicked out half the military. Yeah. Okay, maybe not half, but they were willing to do that.
Yeah.
It's almost like cutting off your nose to spite your face in the extreme. But yeah, uh, so fame changed into, well, the middle disappeared, and the quest for fame. Well, no, I can't say that. There's a codicil to that contract, but there always was, wasn't there? You always had to pay it back in bad ways.
I think this is why we're still writing, and this is more Dragon Draco Chemicus territory.
It is,
Where
yeah, it is.
that we're
there's some
more aware of
convergences
the
there.
degree to which people are captured.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, we are in multiple ways.
yeah.
Yeah,
God, it makes sense. Writing centrism games feel so innocent. It's
I
4 years
know. All
ago,
those
and all
sweet
we
summer
had
days.
was
Holidays.
okay. So and I would say, I mean, some of this is to give you all a little bit of insight into our writing practice and process, and recognize, okay, so we were trying to train in this older form, but which at the time was a quite biting and lively mode. We wanted to model ourselves on doing the satire in the way that Pope had, and saying, taking real people and real problems that we could identify in the culture. And we also wanted it to be set in sort of semi-real places. I mean, like we mapped it around the country, right? To say it was going to be in different parts of the country. Some of this turned out in playing out, and other, because some of the team did what we agreed, and some of them went off on their own tangents. And I edited
Yeah.
it, and it all hangs together really well. but there's a frame story.
Madam Editor.
What?
Madam Editor, we owe it to you.
There's a frame story that is, they started in the middle of the country, which is, in sort of psychic terms, St. Louis, right? Because it's St. Louis is between east and west, in the middle of the river, under the arch, right?
Gateway to the west.
Gateway to the west, and that Fama, our goddess. So Dullness was the goddess that was calling all the games that Pope Dunciad had. Our character, our goddess was Fama. We called her, oh, mild and moderate, right? Because she's always staying in the middle, right? If you're going to please her, you have to stay within the between. And she's brought everybody to St. Louis for a banquet, right? A banquet rich for donors great and small. The goddess Fama to St. Louis called, to speak in clever phrases, easy rhymes, as up the social ladders lackeys climb. Post haste they flew o'er land from east and west, hankering to prove their positions the best. Longing for Fama's accepting embrace, they raced to the table, each to zur place. Surrounding Fama like flies on fresh meat, they fluttered and fawned and vied for a seat. They dined on foie gras, sipped ice-cold champagne, watching each other to see who'd be named. One cried, a toast to Fama, our goddess. Jump right on in, no need to be modest. 7 bold knights with their friends all jumped up, as scrambling they raced to raise a gold cup. So we made it a quest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, we've also been learning how to, it's like story collection, because with Aurora Borealis and Draco Chemicus, like the team is honed down, and I have only the best that were left.
Oh, thank you.
It's true. You had to stick with me. Alps upon Alps, right? Everybody. Some people only made it to the first Alp, but we published intros and games and like, bye. And also they weren't all necessarily interested in carrying on with the group ensemble teamwork problem, which has been very interesting. Sorry, where was I? Yes.
It's actually, it's actually tough to team write. It must be like what you pointed out before, script writing, right? Because, well, you have to compromise. Ooh, sounds like Fama, but
a lot. Yes, because we're trying to create the poem rather than, like any of us could write by ourselves, but then trying to write this thing that's not just us, not just our individual voices, but this chorus, right? I think of it as like trying to make singers work together. That you're
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like a chorus.
Or an orchestra.
It's a little little more difficult, because it would be like the people in the orchestra writing their own sheet music, trying to, and you can't. You've got to all come together and you come together with an idea, and then you all work out how you should achieve communicating the idea. So,
well, using our musical metaphor, we just got rap. This is like jazz. To a certain extent, we're improvising off of the group's inspiration to work together. Yeah,
we do. And the more you work together, the easier you do that with each other.
Right.
So we've all been working together for like 4 years now.
Right.
And it does get easier, for sure.
So
because you learn to listen a lot.
With this, yes, with this one, we said, okay, so we're going to have them. There's going to be a series of stories that people are going to sub-write, and then the larger frame story with Fama calling them all together for this feast in St. Louis under the arch, and there's 5 sets of knights. We said 7, but that's because some of them are in sets. And they all want to, like toast to her and praise her, and they all take the mic. One by one, the knights took up the mic, inspired to praise their goddess and her like. Arrayed in fashion's finery du jour, they beamed with Gauvain praise for their auteur. Fama herself directed this affair, and sycophants abounded everywhere. But in the distance, one sad woman stood, alone, confused, and hoping for some good. Okay, there's this hidden mystery there, right? And of course, I'm reading this now and going, it's not perfect. I mean,
I know, I did too. It's like, oh, as I was reading it, I was like, that's what, this is our first attempt, and it's not a bad attempt at all. We did pretty well. But yeah, the more you do it, the more you want to just keep editing it and getting it perfect.
which is how, some of these poets never finish, right? Because you just like you can always be polishing it up. The Alps upon Alps are still going there.
Yeah. For sure.
So they've all gotten up and they're toasting her, and then we said, well, we need a disruptor character to trouble the scene, and I really don't remember how we figured this out.
I do.
Okay, I mean, I remember how we figure out who it is, right? But how did we decide to have this chaos element?
Oh, well, it had something to, well, it was based on the Green Knight,
right?
Sir Gawain, the Green Knight. I can't remember how it got in there. I know at the time, I think BBC had just redone its own version of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and maybe that's how it got into our consciousness at the time, where we're all reminded of it. Maybe I'm just taking a guess because I don't really remember how that came up.
I don't remember at all. The thing is, I know that. So we've had her there, and they're all praising her and stuff. And I guess, to drive a plot, you need. I guess it was because it was a quest and it was a competition, right? And they're all like sort of Arthurian knights getting up and saying, toast to the queen, toast to the queen. And here comes in the Green Knight. I mean, I think I was teaching Tolkien that spring, and I read his translation with the students for the class because there's all this sort of Intish green bushy.
You must have read it.
Yeah, I must have been reading it. But so we say, okay, so we need a disruptor character in there. And then since we are doing this satirically and modeling our cast on real people, we had a big brainstorm about how we would be able to imagine in our writing the Green Knight, Sir Gawain of the Green Knight. No, the Green Knight. The Green Knight named Gawain. Wait, the Green Knight. You know what? Whose name is who in modern life was named Gawain? Well, we figured it out. Same name as Gavin.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot it was Gavin. Yeah, that's right.
Gavin McInnes, in fact. But I think this is so. When Casey's talking about how poetry is, very formal and structured like that, in fact, what it does is train you to look for these echoes and chords and resonances in story, right? In the symbolism. And, obviously prose writers can do this too with the way they name characters and such like that. But it's interesting. The more we've written the poetry, the more patterns appear in, like, for real, in the stories that we're telling. Well, it's like the patterns are out there in the world that we're trying to describe. And we notice them because we're writing the poetry.
It's magic. It's like magic. It's like it reveals itself as you're writing in this meter.
Right.
English is like a magic language, I think.
Yes. And the thing is, I've written a lot, right? I've written giant books, one about Milo, several about Mary, and I know this phenomenon of things start falling into place, but never in with the sort of crispness. And I think of writing these poems as like it is like jewelry making, right? It's like putting together these perfect pieces so that all of the gemstones work together in this one beautiful jewel, which is very Sir Gawain and the Green Knight kind of imagery, because that's what that aristocratic poetry of the Middle Ages did. It's like a lot of gemstone descriptions of beautiful clothes and horses and things like that. But you see why it's this. If you want to cultivate beauty, you've got to be writing at this level of structure, because it comes out and shows itself to you. And then you find out that you're writing this line. The toasts were done, the feast begun, when lo, some uninvited guests perturbed the show. In crept a stench that made all clutch their pearls, for coming was a band of lads, no girls. They proudly clamored, cheered, and gaily played. True men at arms, none were neutered or spayed. that didn't scan. They came in every color from every place, but one was oddly greenish of the face. You could see, it's like, we can tell you, we know how this cracks and breaks and does not get Popian levels in some of these, that maintaining iambic pentameter and not breaking into anapests is really hard, because so many poems that you probably know are anapestic. It was a night before Christmas and all through the house. So you end up falling into the wrong beat.
Right. Yeah. It's like going back to something familiar from childhood.
Right. And I was not as whip cracking as I am now, and I let it go. It's my fault.
Wow.
No, the thing is, sometimes I didn't know how to fix it, right? And so I would, and it was saying, like, I can tell this doesn't scan, but I wasn't, I think this is actually true too. I didn't have the confidence in my own ear to say, I'm sure that doesn't scan, because people would all be arguing and say, no, that's great, and it has to be that. And now I think also the group that's writing Draco Chemicus, we've gotten much more patient at saying that doesn't scan. Yeah. You are better at saying it doesn't rhyme. I'm usually like going, no, it does, it's fine. And you're like, no.
Well, what's funny is what our accents also played a role in that. In different parts of the country, and in our Kilts is from Australia, you will say things differently. You'll put the emphasis on a different part of the word sometimes. So to somebody else's ear, it would rhyme. So we're
the enduring question of how many syllables fire has.
Right. Far.
And fiery. Fiery. Is it fiery?
Fiery.
Fire.
Yeah, it's true though. You argue about. It didn't take us that long. It took us a couple of months to finally get, oh, wait a minute, I know how she's pronouncing this. Okay. I see what she means. Yeah, it totally fits. Yeah. But it would sound different, but I mean, sorry, go on.
No, but so it's again, it's the, like, we wanted to a little learning, right? We wanted to try, what was why was he able to write that perfect 18 lines? Just so beautiful and perfect. And you have to hear everything. It has to have the right beat. It has to come, all of these beautiful things have to come together. And then and what's interesting is, once you've achieved some kind of, which we don't think we have yet, we're still working on it. Once you've achieved that kind of pure craftsmanship, it's like everybody knows a little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink tea or taste not the Pyrenean spring. It's like just seems true, right? Because he crafted it so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have they've bumbled in their bad meter. A hawk of white on his lapel did shine, a wizened face, a beard with breath of wine. Almost medieval in his disposition, stoutness of heart propelled him on his mission. I really can't read this. He had no patience for this kind of party, all pretense without meaning, far too arty. Though imperfections dotted all his frame, he spoke at once like one not courting fame. And so our Gawain, our Green Knight, he's green. Did we say he was green? Yes, one was oddly greenish to the face. He now insults everybody.
He just comes in, stinks up the place, literally insults everybody. He comes in with his rowdy Proud Boys.
Yes.
Right? in this beautiful, white linen garden party. And yes, hilarity ensues.
Yes, well, it insults them all. It says, you're all pretending, and then Fama is like, well, we have to prove him wrong, right, about us.
Yes.
Then Fama gave her faithful knights a quest, a tourney that would prove her way the best. These knights she sent out to the world in pairs to show that virtue shines in those who care, right? That they are now going to go off in their quest. I think I actually like this stanza. To arms, she cried, the world lies at your feet. No conscience needed, just your self-conceit. Our master Smith knew that opinion rules, just like our forefathers taught us. And so, no, broke there. Okay. Went gold, went fame, le monde va de lui-même. All you need do is seek la creme de la creme. And if any time, if at any time you rise to fame, remember to put someone else to shame. Okay, almost worked. That one broke in some place. Anyway, see, she's playing off of Adam Smith, right? In the Theory of Moral Sentiments, that, being lovely is opinion ruling. In mark of your success, there is a prize, a mask of gold to wear for the assize. You will be weighed and measured and found true if at the end you prove you know who's who. Serve me and you will rise to glorious fame. Shun me, your life will never be the same. Me shun your life. Okay. Consider now your willingness to bout and signal your acceptance with a shout. And they all, then say, yes, we're going to go off and quest.
Yes.
You want to tell them about yours? Okay. So the characters, and this is praised very nicely by Casey in this week's newsletter, which will go out on Saturday, that there are five quest characters, sets, right? The first one, the Hollywoodlanders of Hollywood.
Yeah.
The Cuomo brothers. The
Cuomo Bros.
The Cuomo Bros. Yes, the Cuomo Bros with a period. Okay, the Cuomo Bros, right? Who go to New Orleans and have a pub crawl and end up in jail.
Yeah.
It's satire. We're allowed. The Lady Priest, which you can read in full on the blog under Abortion Games, because she's invited to a satanic temple ritual that they need her for, the witches do. The Rainbow Boys, whose story has come horribly true in detailed ways. With surrogacy, although their baby runs away inside mom. The pregnant girl who makes a decision to take that abortifacient pill that you can get in the mail now, although you couldn't at this point. And that's what when we wrote this was before Jackson v. Dobbs v. Jackson, whichever it was. It was 2 years before the Supreme Court decision, which makes us pretty topical and prophetic. And then we'll tell you once we give you our sample story where they end up at the end. But anyway, let's go to Hollywood. So tell us about the story you wrote and how it fits in this project.
Okay, so what she said, you have to prove your virtue to see who cares, and I thought, this is so perfect for Hollywood. I don't know if it's true now. It probably still is, but a while ago, before we wrote this, at least if you read Hollywood entertainment type news, every star was supposed to have a cause, almost like Miss America, or the First Lady. You have to have your cause and in your charity, and you have to show how much you care. And so, okay, I'm going to write about the people of the Hollywoodlanders. So Hollywoodland was the original name for Hollywood. It was a real estate development.
Hollywoodland was a real thing?
Yep, it was called Hollywoodland, and the sign said Hollywoodland. And
what, the other letters fell off?
Well, they changed the name later just to Hollywood, to shorten it to Hollywood. But it was called Hollywoodland, and it was they were doing. This was before the movie industry, I think. I re-looked at the research I did for that, but they were trying to convince everybody to move there, and then of course the movie industry moved there from New York City, where it started on Broadway. And so everybody was moving to California, and they became, the Hollywoodlanders, the people who moved to Hollywood and built Hollywood. And now, of course, it's the center of film in the world. So the Hollywoodlanders, led by Meryl Streep, who gives a great speech at the toast that you just described. She ran up before anybody else and just basically knocking them out of the way like a linebacker to get up there first and grab this cup to give her speech, right? And so she said, "We accept the challenge," right? So her company includes Gwyneth Paltrow and J.J. Abrams and Taylor Swift, who's not an actress but desperately wants to be one. And so they go off to Hollywood to put on a show, right? It's their favorite subject themselves. But before then,
Yes.
yes,
I've
they're going
noticed
to
that it's like,
go.
well, I mean, academia, whatever, like we can talk, but Hollywood, the theater and film are always really great at making movies about theater and film.
Oh
It's,
yeah, they are. Yeah, it's crazy. But I can't remember which one it was. I'm not going to mention it, but I said, yeah, I can understand why this film won so many awards because it's about actors, right? It's
right.
about
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
But and there was a couple of movies like that over the past 5-10 years. But so anyway, they're going to put on this big, show. Come together, come together under the stars or something like that. I forget what I put in there, but they're first going to give a tour of Hollywood. And on the tour of Hollywood, you're talking. They're going to be talking about basically Hollywood history of film and science, which is
Yeah.
interesting because Thomas Edison has a star on Hollywood
Oh,
Boulevard.
here we have the sword boulevard
Yeah,
of. So
yeah.
what are in the map? What are all those marks? Are the
Those marks are where the stars
okay
are.
the
So
actual stars in the
so
in
the
the
actual stars that are embedded in the
okay.
sidewalk. So that's called the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And you can walk along it. Thomas Edison has a star there because he was instrumental in helping to develop the movie camera, I think.
So he
I think
claimed.
that's how he claimed, right? Yeah. Might have been one of his assistants. But I think that's how he got his, because he was instrumental in helping the movie industry start because of the tech that he developed, the tech of 1900,
Mhm.
basically, or thereafter. But so they go and they walk along all the stars, and they point out the architecture, and they point out the people who they thought were most important, and the people they don't mention are Weinstein and other people who are rather infamous now. And it's pointed out that they're not mentioning them. And it's also kind of slightly pointed out that at the time we wrote this in 2020, that men aren't exactly, at least not publicly, popular in Hollywood right then. This is the middle of the Me Too movement.
Okay, so they walked the boulevard to iPhones snapping and cameras in whose focus they were basking, while pointing at the stars whose lives they'd followed and honoring them like they were war heroes. Jean Harlow, Ava Gardner, and Monroe, Jay Garland, Betty Davis, Clara Bow. A mayor or a Weinstein wasn't mentioned. JJ was silent as if in detention. Because he's a man?
He's a
Okay.
man. He's going to shut up, right? He's surrounded by women.
Okay.
He's surrounded by at least one very powerful woman, who's Meryl Streep,
Right.
right? It's got a lot of influence. So originally that was supposed to be a combination of Meryl Streep and Oprah Winfrey, but that was
Your
my
character.
writing partner said,
Yeah.
yeah, my character. I said it's a bit confusing, so it just said, okay, it's Meryl Streep then. Can't remember why I picked her. I think it might have had something to do with the meter or the rhyme, actually.
Yes,
At some
we've
point,
gotten better at realizing what names we cannot use. They will never fit
yeah.
in the meter.
Winfrey, Street. Oh yeah, we're going with Street. Okay, we're gonna do that one. Yeah,
If you wonder why certain names work in poetry and not others, it's
yeah, that's why. So J.J. Abrams is the link between science and film, of course, because he does science fiction, and then they go to, first of all, they're pointing out a lot of the occult stuff and mixed with the science stuff, mixed with the fame stuff. All of that converges in Hollywood, right? The Edison, the Griffith Observatory. No, it was the Egyptian theater, whose name I can't remember right now, but it's in there. So it's an Egyptian theater that they had all the Egyptian gods there, but they were actually the gods of death, which is really weird. There's a lot of occult stuff going on in Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember when you were
map.
doing for this one, we wrote these in pairs, right? And Casey was
I wrote with
Matt, right? And you'd
Yeah.
come back with this stuff. It's like, yeah, and I found out there's this in Hollywood. I'm like, what? Everybody knows how weird it is now. It keeps getting weirder and weirder, but you actually have the Weird Museum. It
Oh,
felt like we were, in a Dan Brown novel.
oh, that one. That's the occult library.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I
Right.
called it
That's the
Weird
occult
Museum in
library.
my slide labels. The occult library. Okay.
Right. Right. Yeah, it is, and it has lots of occult literature, and there were some very famous people that used to like to go there. I forget that now. I'm blanking on the name of the man who started that, but he actually influenced quite a lot of people, including one of our other writers informed me, Ronald Reagan.
Hmm.
And yeah, Nancy Reagan also, they were big fans of his, the man who was this library was dedicated
So
to.
this is after
Uh,
hearing tales of stunning bravery, Merrill led them to a research library, of philosophical and occult books which neatly line the towering stacks and nooks, with neutral tones of brownish tan and ochre and black iron balustrades evoking Stoker. Another guest was waiting up the stairs to cook up something special with her prayers.
hmm, ominous.
Yes, yes. Well, I
Yeah.
actually have gotten to visit LA a couple times since you wrote this. I'm like, okay, wait, I have not seen all of these places. I have seen some things like the LA Public Library, which has a very interesting sunburst pyramid on top, which I'm feeling a little more skeptical about now, and also some like Anubis statues and such in the interior. LA is
In the
I need
library.
I so and then since we wrote this, one of the students in the class for writing Christian poetry is from LA, and she put all sorts of like local detail in her poem as well, and I'm like, this is one strange city.
It is. It is. Yeah. So so you have art and occults and science and film all mixing. And so the one waiting to cook up something with her prayers, right? So this is the performance artist Marina Abramovic, and what we describe, the display there described actually happened. It was
Shall I read it?
they yeah. Go ahead and read it.
Abramovich the Serb was in the hall. She wore all black and standing 6 feet tall, held up an iron cross in her left hand and motioned towards the table with a glance. It was both nauseating and a shock to see a naked woman in a box, who's lying in a pool of warmish blood, surrounded by fine crystal drinking cups. That, I think you had a picture of it. It's like this woman on the table and it's surrounded by red liquid. They like punch bowl or something. Oh, okay. Are we sure? Mm.
I
Oh,
There I
now,
am. Okay.
yes,
Sorry.
we won't
The
make
Skype
jokes
demons.
at this stage about what's going on with our tech. Um,
Yeah. So
so this is, it's so funny for me. It's like, one, okay, we're making, we're being modest and whimsical about our early efforts in the meter. Um, but it, I thought when we wrote this, it was pretty dark, and it's gotten worse in real
it's
life.
gotten so much worse. Yeah, so much worse. The stuff that's coming out now. Yeah, yeah, it's all about Hollywood. It's that stuff that's coming out now, and you don't never know if it's true or not. Some of it sounds too horrible to be true.
Yeah.
Um, you don't know, is it a distraction from something else? Is it truth mixed with fiction? Don't know, right? But it's all pretty awful and horrible stuff. The stuff Marina Abramovic does it's all on film. I mean, she does it. Nobody's making that up, you know.
Right.
The next scene where Nicki Minaj and I forget the name of the other rapper's name, where they're chanting spells. They do practice. They did well. One of them actually did practice witchcraft or spells. They I'm going to take a guess and say they might even say they don't, but they talk about it. But I've met people, not these people. I've met other people who say, "Oh, yeah, I do spells. Yeah, I do. I do a little white magic. It's harmless, you know. So it's ubiquitous in our culture right now." And as I pointed out to this one person, I said, "Well, where do you think that power is coming from when you get it?
Yeah.
When you do your white magic?" She went, "Good point." It's like she'd never even occurred to her before. It's like it's got to come from somewhere. It's not coming from God, and the devil is not giving it to you because he likes you,
right?
You know. So yeah.
Well,
but
this is feeding into this. I've been reading this book by John Daniel Davidson, Pagan America, which apparently he's done a bunch of videos on. We now that we're getting ambitious with guests, right? We should see who else we can get on to come talk to us. Yes, people are very casual about this idea that, you know, magic is simply out there. But you're right. Where does it come from?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know where it comes from, but and some of these people might, right, and just be pretending it's harmless.
Okay, we're just tipping into Draco Alchemicus now. We
are.
That I think, and this is what we're trying to show. We're trying to figure out how to plot it so it's in our minds right now with Act 3. Now we've got the characters established and they've told their backstories and such, and they're immersed in this world where the dragon is ruling, and they don't realize it, right? And
yeah,
to a large extent, we don't completely want the reader to realize it. Although the dragon is there in the pictures, and there's, once we get to the end, you should be able to go back and see, yes, he was there all along. But that feeling of Davidson in Pagan America ends with talking about AI and where some of the AI chatbots have gone into these places where, I mean, it's like I can either say there somebody in the background is spoofing and like feeding this dialogue into them, but I guess they're actually the bots, and it's like they sound like demons.
They do. They sound and they look like them sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been following Bob Cross's Twitter feed, and he's talking about using AI on, you know, as cover art because a lot of people starting out can't afford to pay artists. The artist's work is obviously superior.
Right.
Right. So he was he's starting that whole discussion about that. I can't look at a lot of AI art anymore without getting an immediate shock, like creepy, get this away from me. I can't look at it. To me, I'm arachnophobic. To me, it's like looking at a spider. I can't take it for a second. I have to get it away from my vision right away. There's something very wrong with it.
Is it all AI art or just some of it?
It's all of it now. It wasn't 6 months ago.
Wow.
Something's changed.
Oh my.
Yeah, I don't, because I can remember playing around with it with Gab. Gab had one that I would play around with it, and it was kind of weird and kind of dopey and funny. And then I tried it again a couple months later. It's like,
the Gab one is doing that already, and they claim to be training it so that it's not.
Oh, maybe they are training it. Maybe something's infiltrated it.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't want to use it. So that's a whole different discussion of what Bob was talking about in his Twitter. It was,
well, I disagree with him on a variety of things. One, he should know better because he writes about this kind of thing.
Oh.
Like the way I mean, his Codex Babylon series was all about summoning demons as a way of, you know, creating this AI, and the demons are using that they you know, they are setting it up. Spoiler alert. That they need to train the people to make the machine that they can inhabit as a body, right? Because they're obviously immaterial spirits, and so, you know, that seems to be what the
is this the Codex Babylon series?
Yes, Codex Babylon series, and that the demons, you know, in the AI context are, you know, it's like they're the invisible, you know, spirits.
Yeah.
Incarnating through or communicating with people through the digital.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm Catholic. I obviously believe that demons do exist, and I've no reason to believe that they wouldn't use this.
Oh
Why
yeah,
not?
it's
I
like
mean, they're,
moths
they're
to
yeah,
light.
they're
Yeah.
moths of the flame, right? I mean, they're incorporeal, but that doesn't mean they can't move things physically, because they can. I mean, exorcists will tell you that they can do that,
Mm.
right? People aren't flying; they're being picked up and moved. Well, that got creepy fast.
Yes, and this is a demonstration of how writing poetry takes you places you did not expect to be able to
Yeah,
access. For good,
yeah.
I mean, for good and for terror. Although, why? So with Aurora Borealis, which I do have a copy of somewhere, we're going to have to like purify ourselves with a bit of.
I know.
Here we go.
Clean
Right
my
after
clean my
no,
psyche out.
but that's actually why we wrote Aurora Borealis, right? We'd written Centrism Games, and we were so freaked out by where it went. There was like we have to write something like
Got to bring the light back into
light
the back
affirming.
into the
Aurora
world.
Borealis is
Yeah,
literally about searching for the light because we've written Centrism Games, and starting out, it means oh, we're just going to write a little learning is a dangerous thing. Taste
how prophetic was that?
exactly right. It's like where
Yeah,
are you sure you're ready to climb this mountain? Because guess what? It's not
yeah.
just your meter gets better.
Morpheus standing before you with the red pill and the blue pill, right?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Well, and okay, this is actually appropriate. I'm glad that we got here, right? Because we are worried about, and we're laughing right now because we're so terrified. We are worried
Yeah,
about this affect the world, what's happening to our culture and where everything is going. And we're saying, and we started writing the poetry in certain ways because we were saying everybody's always complaining about there's no, nobody's making culture. And we're like, okay, we'll do it, right? But you have to start as
right.
like bad meter before you get to better meter.
Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to write something imperfect. Just do it, and then read it, and fearlessly read your own work and say, oh, I can improve this right here. I'm going to do that in my next one, which I'm writing right now. Right.
Right.
Also, you got to doing it all the time.
Yes, it's regular, and that's what we do as the regular practice, right? That we meet
Yeah,
daily,
we
mostly,
do.
to do it. But that it's like we're talking about the demon, the demonic showing up, and the ugly, and the destructive, and the free verse, that we want access to the angelic, the praise songs, the glory. I mean, so I've spent this quarter teaching I'm feeling freaked out by the demons, so I'm gonna find something better, which is this is the goal that I have, I think.
Well, I love your sticker you post constantly. The medieval Mary punching the devil in the face.
Oh yeah, Hail Mary, full of grace, punch the devil in the face.
Punch the devil in the face. Yeah, see, it rhymes. It was meant to be.
These are Craig Williamson's magnificent alliterative translations of the Old English poetry, and most Old English poetry is not Beowulf. That's just one part of it. Most of it's Christ poems, and
Mhm.
most of it is biblical stories or prayers or you know liturgical lyrics and things like that. And one of the things that my class read this week, we were talking about this yesterday, or paraphrase commentaries on things like the Lord's Prayer.
Mhm.
So this is the opening meditation on the Our Father. You are our Father, ruler of all, King of glory. We call out to you, pleading for mercy, praying for grace. You are the one who can set the soul free. The gift you sent by your holy hand dwell in this humble house of flesh. But where will it go, O Lord of angels, if you do not release the soul from its sins by your righteous power, your just mercy, who is in heaven? You are in heaven, our sheltering hope, the brightest of joys. The glorious hosts bow down before you, bearer of bliss, calling out to Christ with a clarion voice. Holy are you, holy forever, King of all the angels in heaven. Your judgments are just, your righteous reach extends to us all as we bow before you, awaiting our deserts according to our deeds. It will go well for one who works your will. So that's it's not metered in the way that ours is. It's the alliterative poetry. So you're hearing
Mm-hmm.
the calling out to Christ with a clarion voice, the
Yeah.
repetitions of the
Yeah.
yeah. We can we should go for it. No, that's like we've been working on I think we have to keep working on the iambic pentameter for some time until we get Popian
Yeah.
in our abilities. But the we want to be able to write something so crisply and perfectly beautiful that we can praise our creator with it.
Yeah.
And we keep telling them what happens to Hollywood linters. Now that we've okay, so they go they go through the museum. They're walking down the oh, and then okay, so they're walking down the street and the Green Knight shows up, right?
Right. So the Green Knight shows up. The Green Man, I think we call him. He shows
Yeah.
up and to disrupt each one of these because he's trying to make them lose. So he's basically trying to make them lose their cool.
Yes.
Like, and in the case of Hollywood, literally, right? You're not cool anymore.
He's selling cigars.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that was a funny one.
Oh yes, you made the Green Knight. He kept the Green Man, right? He kept popping up and irritating
Popping
them
up.
throughout they're on this tour of places in Hollywood, and he kept
Right. So if he knows there's a contest, he's going to play it too. He's going to show up. He's going to follow these people, and he's going to make them lose. He wants to make them lose. He wants to make them give up this illusion of being in the center.
right. Oh, I see. Yeah. So the thing is, you actually explain in what's the coming in the newsletter, better than I ever had. how no it because so one that the problem of abortion turned into one of the through lines of the story,
Yeah.
and that in my head it all turned into this is actually a poem about that particular centrist question, but
Well,
you're right that the actually the arc of the story is more complicated than that. The center that they're all aiming for is a little different.
I just wanted to add that we all did that independently. We didn't plan that out.
Right.
That which was kind of interesting to see how thoroughly woven it is throughout the entire culture, which
Yes.
is bad, a very bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember our talking about it, and the pregnant girl, the author on that one was saying, this is a, but the thing it's like with the Green Man. I'm not quite sure, remember how clear how we came up with that as he would be the agent of chaos for the story, because otherwise it was boring, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like what kind of competition would they have?
Well, we needed we needed to have some comic relief too, because I think we understood pretty early on in the writing that it was getting really dark and it could just be way too heavy if we didn't put something funny in there, or at least ridiculous.
So it's interesting. It gets dark. It's like they're all just trying to stay in the middle, right? Aren't they just trying to stay within the bounds of the Overton window and not,
That's just the thing, is they think they're in the middle,
right?
but we can see they're not, and the culture they live in is not. Whether it's the Cuomo Bros or the Hollywoodlanders, or the Rainbow Boys, they all think they all, and the Lady Priest, right? They all think, well, this is perfect. We're right in the middle, and we want to appeal to everybody. We want everybody. All are welcome, right? Like from Poltergeist, right?
Right.
It's creepy in a way that the characters themselves don't understand. They don't understand the danger.
But I think that is the reality of the centrism claim.
Yes.
It's this creepy place. It is a no place. Because it's neither.
It's the place where God will vomit you out of his mouth. It's a bad place.
Yeah, the lukewarm place.
Yes.
And that the Green Man is showing them. It's the way Gavin does it, right? Showing up their pretense.
Yeah, mocking them, like very effectively mocking them.
Right. Okay, well, so they've they made it from the museum, and he's now they've gone to Griffith's Hillside Dome. So they go to I don't think we have a picture of that one. The observatory.
No. I had a picture of the inside of the dome there, but I can't remember. Yeah, you included it. Yeah, I think it's in the. Yeah, it was in the pictures.
And what I'm showing? Maybe the inside of the dome. It's like blue on the top.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I thought that was the museum. Sorry.
No.
Okay. All right. So that's the observatory. I haven't been in there.
Mm-hmm.
A crowd of sci-fi geeks was waiting here in Trekkie uniforms and Vulcan ears. JJ was gracious, though he wasn't smiling behind the cool facade where he was hiding, but lit up like the sun when other guests from TV's Nova came from PBS, ostensibly to baptize high-tech drama. Their true intent was pushing science dogma. You got Tyson, what is his name?
Degrassi Tyson.
Yeah.
Hollywood's favorite astrophysicist.
Oh, is he? Okay, so playing
he's in a lot of shows.
Making science into performance art.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, but getting rid of God, right? But Dr. Tyson wasn't going to waste his chance to use these people's love of space. You'll be entertained in the Rex Nihilo books that Rob Cruzy wrote. I wish I knew how to say his name, and he has told me. They have these space apostles that go around talking about space, right? How space, it's big, and then they swear by space, right? So to amplify his atheist fixation, eliminating God from his creation by silencing every dissenting voice that challenged his own academic choice. Think on this, he said, repeating an adage. Ignorance can't be more grateful than knowledge. What? Is that supposed to mean anything? Ignorance can't be more grateful than knowledge.
He was paraphrasing Copernicus, doing it very badly.
Clearly.
He's not very smart.
Okay, now JJ's getting worried and they're gonna ramble on. Here's the green man. Okay. All right, so carry on. Where do they go now?
So I think after he gets JJ to finally lose his cool, and he's like, he disappears. Like, yeah, my work is done here, right? Leaves very satisfied. The Green Knight does, and then Meryl Streep takes over, and she does not like being upstaged, and she's not going to allow this thing they're building up to, this show, to be derailed by this. So she just acts like nothing happens and immediately turns to the director and orders everybody over. Come on, let's go. God, Grauman's Chinese Theater. Show's on. The show, come on. And so she brings everybody there to the show, and it's a stage show where the actors are both performers and audience, kind of like the Oscars. But we didn't call it the Oscars, but
you had this trinity of Oscars in our slides. So
yeah, standing inside the Eye of Sauron, it does look like it. It's really weird. That was 2016.
That's bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Trinity. So weird.
Yes, you will understand, the audience, that we spend all our time going around looking. Dan Brown, is our muse. I don't know, looking for the way in which the symbols are like screaming at us, and just as you get more used to finding things that fit together, the patterns, it's been very interesting over the years working on these poems, that suddenly just like everything is this icon. I didn't even icon, hieroglyphs.
Yeah, and if people don't spend their time doing this, it's easy for them to say, "Oh, you're such a conspiracy theorist." I'm
right.
Like, well, there's no conspiracy, and it's not a theory. It's common knowledge. Look, here's a picture. Yeah. It's right here. It's just that we're looking at it, and we're looking at a lot of it because of the writing.
Right.
No, I'm not going to pretend I didn't see it to make you feel more comfortable. It's already there. Just, deal with it. We have to, so now so do you.
Well, and I'd say, so you could say this is why in modernity people have been discouraged from doing this level of, even at this beginner level, right, of paying attention to the language, the sounds, the visuals, the patterns, the stories, everything coming together. And it's like, I won't say I've always been an observant person, but I know that writing these stories in the poems has made me constantly notice things. I mean, and even in the internet, I'd say it's like, what are we going to do to, save ourselves from being taken over by the social media? If we're watching the social media so that we're paying attention to these things repeating or the things showing up constantly. Okay, that showed up several times today. That goes in. We're attending to what is trying. I don't know. What do we say? It's trying to get our attention. I don't like that. Patterns that are showing up.
Yeah. Or maybe just we're noticing what we're already thinking about. It's possible we're influencing what catches our own attention, just because we're already thinking about it.
Yeah, that's always been the problem of worrying about miracles and the confirmation bias of faith. if you're watching if you're expecting it and it comes, was it there otherwise? Was it always there? And you're just noticing now. We do actually try to make that part of the puzzle of what we're finding as we're writing. Is it an accident, or is it the great structure of the universe? Both.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, what Degrassi Tyson is trying to play at, that's like the science is seeing that and none of the rest of us are. And it's like, well, then you're playing symbol world.
Yeah.
Not science.
Right.
You're playing.
It's the science, right?
Yeah.
Which is the most dumb thing to come out in common American English usage, probably in my lifetime. The science? What? No. The church, the state, not the science. The science is a process. It's not a thing. It's not an end in itself. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, probably just means
science
just means knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Scientia. It's the knowledge. Now it sounds like witchcraft.
Right. But describing it using our witchy magic language of English as the science means it's the end. Don't question it.
Yeah.
We've decided. That's what it implies. And the people using it know that, which is just infuriating.
I'm enjoying how everything is a little learning is a dangerous thing. I read it at the beginning just because it was like my favorite pope, but it seems to apply throughout. Okay, so now we're nearing the end of the Hollywood Landers adventure. The Imperial Palace of Plays stood with red and gold colors of painted wood. A triptych of idols enhanced the stage, where thespians performed to act the sage. Meryl's center stage, the consummate actor, was joined by Michelle, cradling her Oscar. She spoke about choices and held on to hers. Meryl smiled motherly and did not demur.
That's actually really creepy. I wrote that and it's creepy.
Yes, it is creepy. Well, okay, so here we have Meryl. You had Meryl earlier with her goop, or Gwyneth. No,
but that's
Gwyneth with her goop.
Paltrow. Yeah.
Yes. But here we have the woman clutching her prize, right? Her Golden Globe. Michelle.
Oh, she's cradling it. Right. She's
talking about.
She famously accepted an Oscar and said she wouldn't have this if she hadn't had an abortion. She was shouting her abortion, right?
Some years before it actually became a thing, yeah.
No, it was. I think it was going on at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a response to the pro-life campaign saying where women had come forward and said, "I regret my abortion," right?
Right.
Because they wanted people to know it's okay to regret it, right? It's okay to not pretend that it's okay. And so this was the pro-death, response to this was, I'm proud of my abortion. I don't regret it.
Right.
Look what I got. I got an Oscar right here.
I think it's a Golden Globe rather than an Oscar.
I think you're right.
And she got it. This was pretty recent when we were writing, because it was in January.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I think it. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That was a Golden Globe, correct? Yeah. But again, poetic license. This is fiction, so but it's based on a real event. It's based on a real person and what she really said and
Right.
what she really thought at the time. And I hope she still doesn't think that. I do hope she changes because it's not a natural thing to do. It's not a good holy thing to do. It's a pretty unholy thing to do. But there's God is real. He still loves you. He still forgives you.
Yeah.
And I hope she knows that. And if she doesn't yet, I hope she does soon.
Well, it's a challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a challenge figuring out how to help people see stuff. I mean, which is again what it's like our completely modest goal in our poems is
It doesn't sound modest, does it?
it's not modest.
Yeah.
A little learning is a dangerous thing. Come on, Pope wasn't modest. I think he wrote that like he was 25 or something. So if you're writing
Yeah.
poetry, you're already pretentious. Um, that
No, don't tell people that.
did I say that was bad? That but we actually are trying to bring things together so people can see stuff, right? And that's another
Yeah.
hopefully real effect of art, which is vision, right? It's showing you things that you wouldn't have been able to see otherwise, because it, like, I mean, the rhyme and stuff, poetry. So we are writing in heroic couplets in this poem, like Pope did. That rhyme has this way of like going, whoa, wait a minute, right? Because on the one hand it rhymes, and so it's clearly right, and then you realize they did, like, it's crafted on purpose. But on the other hand, there, our propensity in particularly in English, but just in language generally, it's like when something rhymes, we take it as meaningful. So
Because it was
yeah,
what the bards used to help people remember histories, right? That's you use the rhyme. At least as I was taught a long time ago.
well,
So you can remember
certainly
it.
poetry is a far older craft than writing. The people certainly
Yeah,
were
right.
playing with language in this way when it was only oral, and it
Right. Because yeah, right. Because they were hearing it. So it was very powerful to make the connections between words in that way helped you to remember them, but also helped you to focus your attention on what was being said, the information that was being imparted.
I mean, what I think about with the rhymes is it's like an anticipation fulfillment. So you get the
Oh,
first sound, and then what the next one is going to come, and it's going to rhyme, and then you're satisfied. So there's I mean, the cognitive effect there is quite powerful because
yeah,
it's,
true.
like I said, meaningful. It feels meaningful because it's satisfied your anticipation.
Hmm.
Oh, here we have Taylor Swift. Okay, so as the two ladies walked off together, a curtain was raised. There stood young Taylor, dressed in some retro chanteuse hippie fashion, singing a sexed up version of Imagine. Which, did she really do that? She was doing quite
I don't know. No, I made it
okay.
up,
She was doing
but it's
quite
something she
well,
would
had the
do.
crowd humming until she looked out and saw what was coming. Two zombie blondes from singer actress past had spawned from the seance. She ran away fast. Okay, what was going on there?
Okay, that's a reference to that was the absurd I put into it. That was a reference to the library, the occult library where where they had the
Oh,
seance and they were
yeah.
chanting. Right, the girls were chanting a spell, and you didn't read this part, but what it said was something attached. They conjured something up, and it attached to the people that were there
Ooh.
and followed them.
Ooh.
Right, and it followed them to the ground of the Chinese theater, and they made their appearance as zombies. Right, as blonde actresses of past. This is what Taylor Swift wants to be. She wants to be an
Hmm.
actress, and in the story, people satire, remember, but so what was conjured up was what she wanted, but in a twisted, kind of scary, demonic version of it, and throw a bit of B movie Hollywood thrown in to boot. Right? So these zombies appear, looking very very blonde but very dead, and she freaks out and runs off the stage, and everybody's like, "What's going
Mm.
on?" Everyone except
Meryl.
Miss Cool
Well,
herself.
that was a treat, chirped Meryl, unfazed, as she and Gwyneth walked to center stage. Right before speaking, they saw Rose McGowan. Shouting in anger and protest, she faced down, her disloyal, self-serving sister in art. You knew that he raped me. You have a black heart. You said nothing. Be ashamed of yourself. Gwyneth said meekly, I had to build wealth. We said we went dark. Gwyn walked away, leaving
Rose
Meryl
McGowan,
alone to face the fallout, a queen on her throne. But she wasn't bothered. She oozed sympathy. It's hard with emotions so strong, you'll agree. We support all women. All women are strong. Then she saw down front one who didn't belong. You're next, mouthed the green man so she could see. She saw it and smirked, thinking, you don't know me.
That was a lot packed into two.
That was, you were hitting your stride, but they and it's been fun that like as we get better, which we do, but I think the story still stands beautifully on its merits as we wrote, right? That I think for me this proved that you could not have written this as effectively just as a prose story. It needed to be in the meter, in the poem, in the sort of surprises and like what you've said, because I appreciate that you do this, you Casey do this, that everything when it works together, it's like stripped down and yet full in the word choice and rhymes and imagery and things like that, and that's been really fun learning how to achieve.
Yeah, it does work when you're that restricted. It does work. I wanted to write about 100 stanzas. I was reduced to 30.
Yes, I had to rein you in there, and I did do that.
I know my writing partner Matt, if he's watching, hi Matt. He was really good at that too. He's like, I think you're putting weight a little too much in this. Let's just tone it down.
Yeah. Well, you are perfectly free as you have to write more of your own, right? But
exactly,
hopefully you've understood now why I was trying to keep it to a certain length as well.
Yeah, it actually worked to focus into one coherent story, which wasn't easy to do with that many characters. But I wanted to put them all in because they're hilarious,
right.
And with the exception of Rose McGowan, who's heroic people. She's a hero, and she did speak up a lot. There was one picture I don't think you put in there.
I took it out.
And not that one. It was of an early picture of Gwyneth Paltrow, and she did Shakespeare in Love, and Weinstein was the producer on that. And there's a couple of pictures of her, but one in particular, she looked like so depressed and so sad and so horrified to be standing next to this slug-like looking man, And so I think she had to know what was going on. But I actually think she was somewhat victimized by him as well, not as badly as Rose McGowan was. But so I think my writing partner and I disagreed on how she should be portrayed in that. I actually think she's a victim. I felt a bit sorry for her.
Yeah.
So when she slinks off the stage and said, I had to build wealth, she was actually saying that in my head. She was saying that very sheepishly, like, yeah, I know it was the wrong thing to do.
Right.
But I had to do this because,
Well, making vagina scented candles. Really?
Yeah, she did that. Yes.
I know. Really?
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking?
And you notice how that the advertisement for that, the photo where she's standing in what looks like the layers, it reminds me of some of the earlier icons of the same shape, and I forget what they were called.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a mandorla, right? It's
That's
yes,
yeah.
and some people mock the Virgin Mary in that shape because they say it looks vaginal. Well,
yeah,
that may or may not be a bad thing, since she is the path through which Christ came into the world.
She's the doorway, and that's and there's it's miraculous. It's not skeevy,
right.
And then here's Gwyneth Paltrow years after that picture I described. She's promoting that. It's like, ugh, it's pretty gross. But she said it was a feminist empowerment thing. I'm like, if you say so.
Well, I am in my youth. I had the opportunity to see Judy Chicago's dinner party which was all plates that had, vaginal designs in them, and that she.
I'm not familiar with
Well,
that.
I was very struck by it when I was in college age and doing the backpack tour, and I got to see it in Edinburgh. So what's funny, Liv, is I'm not. I actually I liked it. I thought it was a cool exhibit, but it's of this like ilk, right? Of sort of we're gonna do portraits of famous women with I think like I can't now. If one of them was Hildegard of Bingen, and I think maybe it looked like a mosaic, but no, maybe that was Theodora. No, Hildegard's would have looked something else. And they got more and more 3D as the plates progressed into the present. Georgia O'Keeffe's was, pretty wild and flower-like and such. I'm not again it. So the scent and the candle that seems a little far and strange. And then I think, well, okay, so what is wrong about it? I mean, maybe we shouldn't be making our, genital organs into sculptures, because that's a little pagan.
It reduces women to body parts in particular, which I don't like.
Okay,
I don't
there
think
you
it's
go.
feminist. I think it's anti-feminist.
Yeah.
I think it's just disrespectful of women, and the heart of feminism should be respect of women.
But I mean, from their perspective, that's what they're doing, because they're saying, the thing that makes us most feminine is our genitals. That's
it. I don't think it's feminist. I don't. I guess people have different. Yeah, there was a
you're
thing,
persuading me, so just carry on.
Camille Paglia years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, coined a phrase, do me feminism, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody, or actually, she was actually a big Madonna fan, which I never was. And maybe was it her or was it somebody else who coined that phrase? But
I don't know the phrase, but yes, I mean, it makes sense, because she and Paglia still uses that fashion style, but the sort of leather aesthetic, biker jacket.
Yeah. But that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me this is doomy feminism, which is it's all hyper focused on the sexual act, and in the case of the scented candle, it's hyper focused on a genital, which is just like, this is what you're reducing women to. You're reducing women to a body part.
Right.
That sounds like something a misogynist would do, not a feminist.
Which shows you that when we go into the symbolic on all these levels, they take us places we may or may not be ready to deal with. I mean, so I guess I remember back, one of my more provocative and anger-inducing blog posts back in the 2017 era was these women at the Women's March were dressing themselves in these vagina costumes, and they ended up, but they ended up looking like these medieval meditations on the side wound, because
not their intent.
Well, I mean, particularly some of there's some side wound ones that have a head and hands and feet, and there was I put this in the blog post image, right? There's one of these women in the women marches in these vagina costumes that looked like a 5 wounds meditational image. And then of course I did not expect to go here. I'll take going the way, and then I'll stop talking about it. That when we're dealing with the spiritual imagery, when is it spiritual and riveting and powerful, and when is it just creepy?
That's a very good question. I suppose it depends on the culture you're raised in.
Oh, well, no, I mean, we need some absolutes here. We need, this poetry is beautiful, and that image is uplifting or not. And this,
I guess it's how you feel after you look at it, right?
Because you're saying you can't look at the AI images without feeling creeped out. So there's something in them, right?
There's something in them. Yeah. There's something very wrong in them. Yeah. I don't even like thinking about it.
Well, and then we ended up in the Masonic Hotel.
Yeah, dads. which is a real hotel.
Which is with this Masonic meeting room, right? I think there was this great
Yes, it
Twitter
was.
thread that we found. It's like, that's it. That's where they're going to start, under the
Yep.
arch, which has, accumulated thanks to our poetry and our and the arch is, of course, it's not just the gateway. It's also near those Cahokia mounds outside St. Louis, and I
right.
think
Yeah.
I think they have sacrificial somethings. There a lot of lightning apparently strikes around those mounds. So yes,
Really?
whatever was happening in those ancient pyramids, these are pre-Columbian, so people were up to various things on this continent before the Europeans showed
Yeah.
up. So we started with this sort of magical element of that arch, and then ended with this hidden Masonic temple in London. And you guys have to read the book if you want to know what happens. No, I'm actually quite pleased with the ending we gave the questers, because Famas promised them a golden cup, right? And
Yeah.
who
A golden
wins
mask.
after they go through this whole adventure?
Promise him a golden mask. Right?
There was yes, a mask. Yes, it was a mask. You're right.
Mhm.
Mask of gold. Yes, there's a prize for the mask. Very good. Hello, everyone in the chat. Do you think they'll buy the book now?
I hope so. It's really easy to read, and because it is written in modern language, modern vocabulary. But the stories are really good. They're very, very funny. They're super dark in some parts, but they're also very funny. Yeah.
I think we achieved what we set out to do, which was to prove that it was possible to tell stories in the form, and
Yes.
to inspire ourselves to say, okay, there's more here. A little learning is a dangerous thing, and Alps upon Alps continue to entice us into further poetic adventures.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Cog of War is saying, where can I find a doorway? I feel trapped right now. We can't help you. We don't know which doorway you're looking for. see whether anybody's talking. And we've had far more conversation. Oh, well, Kiltz has been doing a lot of great. Oh, Kiltz has done a whole series of screenshots for us, so we'll share those too.
I am not photogenic. I cringe every time I look at myself.
Hey, I'm still just breaking you in, right? I got you used to being on camera, and I got you used to writing poetry. One day, wait, is it right that they will be famous? We've written this whole cautionary tale about how we shouldn't look for that.
Yeah. One day our poetry will be successful, but we won't be famous. That'll be the perfect.
Well, Pope
It'd still be anonymous.
Pope ended well. We can still hope in the long run for, a villa, I suppose. But at the moment, we're in the midst of the storytelling.
Just enough to get a boat.
But you want a boat?
My husband does.
Your husband wants a boat.
A boat.
I always want a house, right? It's like and even though that would mean moving all my books, which would be a fair exercise.
Yes, just rent a an 18-wheeler and.
Yeah, it's not so much the actual moving part; it's the rearranging them and finding the ones that you can't find anymore.
Oh, just where you left it.
Yes,
right?
yes, and that I sympathize with Pope, because in the beginning of the Dunciad, he has the character despairing of all of the books on his shelves and not wanting to read any more theology. I still want to read more theology. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. We hope you are intrigued by our exercise here to check, and you can get Centrism games. Go to our website, Dragon Common Room, and it'll take you to our Amazon link. And it's a cautionary tale for the day. Don't get sucked in by fame. She won't treat you well. Anyway, okay. Do we know what we're talking about next week? We don't know what we're talking about next week, do we yet?
No.
No, it's a mystery.
I don't think so.
You'll have to join us to find out. Good night, everyone.
Tune in.